So evaluating is an important but rarely urgent activity. It can usually be put off until tomorrow, and then tomorrow usually never comes.
Welcome back to the Doc School Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Kyler Martin. We hope to help you lead your school community with greater wisdom and courage. Transformative schools need effective leaders, and effectiveness requires patient training. Here we go. We're heading into the last quarter of the school year, and our new segment of episodes aims to get you thinking about planning for growth this summer, and to give you a couple good questions to ponder. To begin, we're having a look at the process of evaluation. How do you know when you have had a good year at school? When the people around you talk about having a good year or a bad year, what do they have in mind? As an administrator, it matters that you feel a sense of satisfaction or concern when things are actually going well or going poorly, as the case may be. You play a key role in setting the tone for celebrating success as well as learning from failure. But you need to know what success looks like. And it's often not enough just to trust your intuition. Further, Mark reminds us that we will never be effective evaluators if we are under the tyranny of only keeping up with what's urgent. Effective evaluation requires clarity about our desired ends, attentiveness to our current progress, and scrutiny of our chosen methods. Mark Kurtz speaks with a background in both teaching and administrating, and also shares the connections that he's made between raising strawberries and school children. Mark takes us through an overview of the who, the what, and the where to evaluate, offering a trove of penetrating questions for administrators and school boards. You'll hear Mark describe the 4 quadrants used by Stephen Covey and others to develop time management skills. If this is new for you, find the link in the show notes and consider keeping the diagram in front of you for the section near the beginning where Mark introduces these concepts and gives a few examples of quadrant 1 and 2 activities.
Evaluation is a broad term, and we won't attempt to cover all that in detail, but I'd like to just strike out a few content areas and so on. When we think about evaluating, we might think of assessing. We assess our students regularly with tests and so on. Judging, checking out, grading, critiquing, taking account of. Where are we? And this is, the title here is of our program, whatever all that is. And a program is basically a plan of action to accomplish a specified end. And so our program at school covers everything that flows into the formation of skills and character traits that our students pick up and are taught while they spend their time in our teaching. All the experiences and influences that shape them, their formation of our children while they're at school. Now, to be able to evaluate how well our program is doing, we'd have to know something about what we're trying to do. We'd have to know the what, right? That's not the purpose of this talk. The assumption is that you know what you're trying to do, and rather we're trying to understand whether we're reaching our goals. So we do have to clarify our goals before we can know whether we're moving toward them. If our purpose is keeping our parents legal for less, then it's pretty simple. Are we legal with state mandates, state requirements? And secondly, is our tuition sufficiently low to allow us to do that? If the purposes of our school are to assist in moving childish sinners toward maturity in Christ, maybe and be legal for less, then we must understand something of the mind of Christ. And evaluate our program according to how well our graduates love God and their neighbors. So the purpose of this talk isn't to evaluate what we're trying to do. The assumption is that we do the specified end, although of course the answer to the what question has to be somewhat clear in our minds if we're going to evaluate the program. For example, if we're building a house, we would periodically access the prints. Are we doing what we have said we would do? Are we following the plan? If we're on a journey, we pay attention to the road signs, the weather, maybe the GPS. Otherwise, we might end up somewhere other than where we thought we were going. If we're growing a crop, I grow strawberries. I know that if I'm to experience success in June, I need to pay attention to the preceding 11 months. Plant density, root health, weed pressure, soil fertility, soil moisture, frost protection during blossom, pest, insect suppression, fungus protection. Oh, I need people to help with the harvest. I need containers. We need a marketing plan. And so if I plant strawberries and forget about them until harvest time, I don't know what the outcome will be, but I know it will not be what I had in mind. Someone once told me that strawberries are a high drama crop, and I couldn't agree more after 10 years. Every year is different, and there's so much to learn. As soon as one harvest is over, it's time to plan the next year's strategy. And I think that teaching children and years experienced in school are a lot like strawberries. They both require vigilant attention to details. Both have factors that are out of our control. At the same time, our program does matter. It will have consequences. It's not enough just to look at the bottom line and say, okay, we had a good year last year, so we can relax and next year will be the same, right? Let's do it again next year. No, it means looking at all those details. Why was the employee turnover high? Why were the inputs lower? Why were the sales at XYZ store down a bit from last year? Why this variety had more deformed berries than the other? And so we might look at school this past year and say we had a good year. Everybody passed, no one got expelled. We had money to pay the bills, and we have teachers for next year, and so praise the Lord, just hang in there and keep repeating the cycle. So, we could actually be setting ourselves up for long-term failure. A good year can set us up for failure going forward. After all, what did happen on that school trip? I heard something. Why does the restroom always stink? Why has the light been out in that classroom for 2 months? Why is the 5th grade teacher reading that book to the class? Why is the singing in grade 14 lackadaisical? Why does the 2nd grade teacher seem tired? Why do we have difficulty finding substitutes? So evaluating is an important but rarely urgent activity. It can usually be put off until tomorrow, and then tomorrow usually never comes. And as such, evaluation is a golden egg that deserves our attention. So, a book that I have read numerous times in the past number of years is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of his particular diagrams has, I think, helped me understand this a bit. Time management. So, the grace of God to us this morning is that we have this moment. But the older we get, the more we realize our biggest limit is time, really. And that's a blessing. Mortality is a blessing. Most of you are here, you're board members, you're probably volunteering your time. And you have other things that you do. So understanding what's important in time delegation can help us clarify our priorities. So Covey has these 4 quadrants. On the top you'll see urgent and not urgent, and on my left, important and not important. 4 quadrants, 4 ways, 4 categories in which to place what we do with our time. So I expect this is familiar with many of you, but if it is, a review will probably not be devastating, and if it isn't, perhaps it can be helpful. So in quadrant one, when we're in quadrant one activities, we're taking care of immediate issues that must be addressed, such as a crisis, deadlines, cramming. We're putting out fires, right? We're fighting the immediate issue. And it's taking up all our brain space because this must be dealt with immediately or else the place burns down. If we're in quadrant two, we're planning, we're thinking ahead, we're trying to prevent the fire, right? We're considering our goals, we're evaluating, we're building relationships, long-term relationships, personal development, and I would say that what you're doing here this morning is a quadrant two activity. Praise the Lord. That's where we want to be. We want to be in quadrant two as much as possible. And I'll just touch on the others. Quadrant three is things that are urgent. The telephone rings, your beeper goes off, it means something. But often those things are not important. They have a sense of feeling important, but they actually aren't. But they're urgent because they got our attention. They captured us for a moment. And then fourthly, there are things that are simply a waste of time. There are things we go to when we don't want to face what we need to face, right? It's just doing nothing. It's just chilling out and tuning out. It's an escape. It's getting away from the hard task that's ahead of me. It's just clocking out. And again, there are various things that can qualify, but pleasant activities, things that feel nice and make us comfortable and can help us forget about reality for a while. So again, where we want to be in this time management is right in here. And you might assign an amount of time that you'd like to spend there. But you'll notice what happens when we don't do this. Where are we going to end up? We're going to end up over here. Okay? So I had an assignment this morning. If I was working on this assignment 2 weeks ago, it was over here. If I was getting up at 3 a.m. this morning working on it, it was over here. Okay? And the feeling is very different, right? And we understand. You get this, okay? So the reason you're investing in attending CASB is so that you're not doing as much of this in the future. So, what we've been trying to say is that in any worthy endeavor, evaluation is essential for long-term success. Just a few categories to consider for evaluating the program at school. I am a school administrator, and some of my board is here. And I'll be saying things that I should be doing or we should be doing, and they will know that, well, guess what? The speaker doesn't get all these things done. And it might seem overwhelming. What I would encourage you to do is just think about a few things you could do, if there are things that come to mind. I'm going to consider who and what, and then perhaps where would be one way of saying it. And this is who to evaluate. So our school administration, we need to evaluate ourselves or have someone else do it. How are we doing with our vision? Have we reconciled what is on the ground with what we want, what we'd like it to be, what we believe God's calling us to? There's often a disparity there, right? But we have to sit down and think about, well, what is? What is right now? What's the reality? Are we developing a vision from that? Are we communicating that with our people? With each other? With our patron families? With our students? We'll know something about that if we were to ask our patrons what our vision is for the school. That's probably what it is. If they know what, if they say what we'd like them to say, that means we've been communicating it, right? It means bringing leadership. And I think that being here at CASB is a great time to do this as a board. If you're here with fellow board members, to have a meeting after this meeting and talk about some of these things together is a tremendous opportunity. Our staff, we evaluate them for teaching proficiency. Can they teach well? Can they explain complex problems in a simple way that can be understood? Can they work with the team? Are they connected with their students and with their parents? Are they spiritually sensitive to the needs that they are surrounded with constantly? The student body, what are the skills they're gaining? What's their spirit? What's their attitude toward life? What's their conversation like? Who are their heroes? And we could go on and on with that. How do you do this? Well, I would just encourage you to be in your schools periodically. And when you're there, you always have your feelers out, right? What's happening? What are the attitudes? What are the things being taught officially? But then there's also sometimes other things you pick up, right? What happens in the bathrooms? What happens at the lunchroom? What are the conversations? What are people interested in? What are they excited about? And making little mental notes or paper notes of those things can be good fodder for discussion later. The patron body, what is their vision? How are they involved? Would some of them like to be involved more? How could we tap into the wisdom they bring to this organization, the skills they have? This is one I don't think about much, but really our alumni represent what we have poured into this program over the years, and I think it's something that we could be tapping into. And I don't know exactly how that could be. Sometimes we can do it just by having individual conversations with people, whether there could be a larger forum, but these people have experienced what we are in charge of, right? So they have an insight, they may have an insight once they're 5 years beyond the program about what it was actually like that those that are in the program now or those that are running the program don't have. We could also think about our church body. After all, isn't at least part of the goal of this program to raise people who are equipped to meet the needs of the church body? So, relational skills, listening skills. How many of you have a listening class in your high school? Some of you have a speaking class, perhaps. What about a listening class? Study skills, meaningful work, humility, gratitude, stewardship, many attitudes we could think about. We need those kinds of people, don't we? What does the church need? And I think we could even think about specifically in our community, in Belleville, what is it we need? What are the skills we need in our community? And think about whether our school is directing some energy toward those needs. Who should we evaluate? And I didn't answer all the questions about who does it and when it happens. What should be evaluated? I'm thinking now of content and so on. So our curriculum. What are the academic content areas? Math, reading, science, history. Are these pieces all moving our students in the direction we'd like them to go? Are they effective? Are they keeping our students' attention? Are they being taught in a way that points our students to the bigger picture, to the story of God and the world? What we have our students spend time on influences them. If they are zoned out for 45 minutes every day in math class for 12 years, that has an effect on their character and development. So are we teaching it well? Is it connected to something larger? There are also extracurricular activities. We have some high school trips. You may have field trips. You may have other hands-on activities. Are these things entertainment for us? Are they a reward for grinding away in school for so many hours? Or are they part of the program, part of the discipleship that's intentionally developing particular attitudes and skills in our students by those experiences? Let's not let them be a secondary, thoughtless activity. School events. I don't know what school events you have. A few that we have include a back-to-school night, We have 2 fundraiser suppers. We have 2 parent-teacher conferences. We have a turkey in the hole event where the high school men dig a big hole and we make them do it by hand with shovels 30 feet long and 2.5 feet deep and 2.5 feet wide. And they're there for the night and they roast 10 birds in there. And then the ladies prepare other food to go with the meal and we invite the patron body in for that meal and other people. Christmas program, we have a school inspiration meeting. What we try to do is to discuss these events as staff and board, both before and after. Did this event contribute to a positive community gathering? Was this edifying? Was it inspirational? 10 years ago, I remember we talked significantly about poor attendance at some of our events and thought about what are the ways we can encourage this and make this a priority for our parents. One of the things you can do if you have trouble with attendance at some school events is to get the students involved. We found that if the students are involved, if they want to be there, they'll help mom and dad come too. And over the years, we've had some success, but I think it's been partly because we've evaluated over time. And we've looked at how it went and what we can do to improve the experience for people coming. Policies and documents. There are all kinds of things. Student handbook, faculty handbook. Evaluate these things. Are they up to date? Are there ways we can set policies to help us prevent some crises so we know what to do when something happens? And I would suggest, and this could be an annual review by the board. We could look over what we have, and our board does a 5-year complete review of the entire student handbook, which I think is good. But to have a time where we look at what we say and evaluate whether we're doing what we say, and then what are the new things coming along? So it's not enough just to maintain. Maintaining is changing because circumstances change, people change, and we need to continue to think about what's coming our way that we need to adjust to. Drop things that are outdated, right? It makes the whole thing seem irrelevant. Finances, of course. Evaluate the finances. And that will happen sooner or later. Yes. Depends what happens, it will happen, right? But our last several treasurers have done an excellent job with our finances, and it's just a relief to know that things like this are taken care of. And they have set some things in place to really help that happen well. But what are the needs we have, and what are the things we can do to help meet them? Just to comment back on the finances, I would encourage you to have a long-term capital fund, capital projects fund, besides your yearly maintenance for things that come up over a period of time that we may not be expecting. Now let's go to evaluating. I'm thinking about the space here, the area we work in, and we can think about the indoor space. But let's start with the geographic area. So we are in central Pennsylvania. We're in the mountain and valleys region of the Alleghenies. That means we're between 2 mountains. We're in a broad, fertile valley. It's a farming community. It's a relatively rural area. It's in the temperate zone. So we probably, since we're rural, we won't have a lot of public library resources, right? I'm just saying that's an example of the things that affect our school based on the geographical area, okay? We're near a state forest. We're near the old C&O canal bed. We have productive soils. We're just behind an old people's home. So how does that, thinking about where we're placed right now, both in time but also geographically, how does that affect the opportunities we have? Are we taking advantage of those things? Are we utilizing those opportunities? Our children should know something about the mountains. We can also consider our grounds right around the buildings. We have 3 acres, we have a softball, we have a soccer field, we have a garden, we have a large blacktop area, we have a swing set and play area, grass field, beehives. Is the maintenance happening on these areas? Again, something the board should be thinking about. Are we keeping them up well? And then, of course, we have the indoor spaces. The classrooms, the assembly area, the restrooms, the hallways, the gym, the office, the tutor space, the kitchen, the storage areas, the drinking fountains. How well is the space utilized? Where are we lacking needed infrastructure? Are the wall and floor coverings kept up and maintained? And so, maintenance needs. Walk through your facility on a regular basis, looking for items in need of repair or in need of upgrades. Again, whether that's a board member who's assigned that specific responsibility or the school administrator or principal, it needs to happen, otherwise things are left go. And that's a demoralizing thing for your students when they come to school and that hole in the floor is still there. It's been there for 5 years and everyone knows that. And so we've said, evaluate the who, the what, and the where for the physical space of the program. Just a couple more comments here. I think it's also helpful to evaluate the wider cultural pressures. And I think this is at least partly the responsibility of pastors and church leaders. And you consider, for instance, in the last 2 generations, the move away from the agrarian lifestyle, how that has affected us. Children now are a financial liability to their parents rather than an asset. Children have less structured work, and the work they have generally does not have built-in consequences, as in, if you're in charge of feeding and watering the animals and cleaning them and you don't do it, they will suffer. Most of the work we have now isn't that helpful. There's also significant changes due to increased disposable income. Our children, our people have hobbies like sports and coffee shops to no end. There's entertainment. We've become perhaps consumers versus creators. There's an entitlement mentality, owners versus stewards of God's grace. Boredom has been a word that's been coined in the last several generations, and it means that we are reactive instead of proactive. We're living in quadrant 1. We're just responding to the stimuli around us instead of actually taking action to change what's going on. There's also a lot more opportunity. There's opportunity to give money and time. We have communication, transportation options like we've never had before. So I think that someone ought to be paying attention to these broader cultural headwinds that are coming toward us. I'm going to read a quote just briefly that someone shared with me this past week, and a few of you were at that meeting, but it's something I've been thinking about before, not the quote specifically, but the meaning of it. This is from, and I can't source this exactly, it's attributed to some sheikh who supposedly founded Dubai, and he may have been referring to his country's newfound wealth dependent on oil and so on. Here's what he said. My grandfather rode a camel, my father rode a camel, I ride a Mercedes, my son rides a Land Rover, his son will ride a Land Rover, my great-grandson will be back on a camel. And why is that? Hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create difficult times. Many will not understand it, but you have to raise warriors, not parasites. So thinking about the times we're living in today. Moses spent a lot of time instructing the children of Israel. Most of the book of Deuteronomy is reminding them of things they'd already heard before. And in chapter 8, he says about 5 times to not forget the Lord when you get to that place that you've been wanting to go to. And that challenge I'd like to leave with us, to remember, to evaluate, not forget. God bless.